Have you ever wondered what event sparked the deadliest conflict in human history, World War II? Seeds of this global conflagration were sown in the heart of Europe, in a nation struggling under the weight of a crippling economic depression, Germany. Enter Adolf Hitler, a charismatic orator with a vision of a new, powerful Germany, free from the shackles of the Treaty of Versailles. His rise to power in the early 30s, alongside the ascension of his National Socialist German Workers' Party, colloquially known as the Nazi Party, marked a period of swift and troubling change. In the late summer of 1939, Hitler's ambition reached a fever pitch with the invasion of Poland. This act of aggression was a step too far for Britain and France, leading them to declare war on Germany. And thus, World War II was set into motion, a conflict that would redefine the course of the 20th century. The war did not remain confined to Europe for long. The conflict, like a ravenous beast, began to consume the world, one nation at a time. Italy, under the leadership of Benito Mussolini, joined the fray, aligning itself with Germany. The Italian forces, driven by a desire for expansion and a dream of a new Roman Empire, launched invasions in North Africa and the Balkans, spreading the war beyond the boundaries of Europe. Meanwhile, far to the east, Japan, buoyed by its own imperial ambitions, embarked on a campaign of expansion across the Pacific. The infamous attack on Pearl Harbor in December of 1941 marked a pivotal moment in the war. This surprise military strike by the Japanese Navy against the United States catapulted the US directly into the throes of the war, marking a significant expansion of the conflict. Back in Europe, the war took a dramatic turn when Hitler made a critical error in judgment. He broke the non-aggression pact with the Soviet Union that had been in place since 1939, launching a massive invasion. This marked the beginning of the grueling Eastern Front, a brutal theater of war characterized by ferocious combat, vast destruction, and immense loss of life. Meanwhile, the Battle of Britain raged in the skies. This was the first major campaign to be fought entirely by air forces. The relentless German air raids, intended to gain air superiority ahead of a planned invasion, were met with fierce resistance by the Royal Air Force. This battle marked a turning point in the war, demonstrating that Hitler's forces were not invincible. The war had now become a truly global conflict, involving nations from every corner of the globe. The world had been plunged into a maelstrom of violence, the likes of which it had never seen before and would pray never to see again. Behind every war, there are individuals driving the events. As we delve deeper into the annals of World War II, we encounter figures who were instrumental in shaping the course of the conflict. Let's start with Adolf Hitler, the man who, as Chancellor of Germany, brought about the war's inception. Hitler's aggressive foreign policies and expansionist ideology were central to the start of the war. His charismatic oratory and propaganda machine managed to keep the German populace on his side, even as the tide of the war started to turn. Across the English Channel, Winston Churchill stood as a beacon of hope for the free world. As Prime Minister of Britain, his stirring speeches and unwavering resolve inspired a nation to stand firm against the Nazi onslaught. Churchill's strategic decisions, including the decision to continue fighting when defeat seemed imminent, were vital in maintaining the Allied resistance. Across the Atlantic, Franklin D. Roosevelt, President of the United States, played a crucial role in supporting the Allies even before America officially entered the war. His policies, such as the Lend-Lease Act, provided essential aid to countries battling the Axis powers. Roosevelt's decision to enter the war following the attack on Pearl Harbor marked a significant turning point in the conflict. In the East, Joseph Stalin, the leader of the Soviet Union, despite his brutal regime, was a key player in the Allies' victory. Stalin's decision to move industries eastward saved Soviet production during the German invasion, ensuring a steady supply of weapons and equipment to the Red Army. Lastly, in Italy, Benito Mussolini, the founder of fascism, allied with Hitler, dreaming of a new Roman Empire. However, his ill-prepared military and misguided strategies led to multiple failures, resulting in his downfall and Italy's eventual surrender. These individuals, through their actions and decisions, played pivotal roles in shaping the course of World War II. Every war has its turning points, moments that shift the balance of power. In World War II, these turning points were pivotal battles that swung the momentum in favor of the Allies. The first of these was the Battle of Stalingrad. The German army, led by Adolf Hitler, sought to capture the city of Stalingrad in the Soviet Union. However, the Soviet Red Army, under the command of General Georgy Zhukov, put up a fierce resistance. The battle raged on for 5 long months, from August 1942 until February 1943. It was a brutal siege, marked by close-quarters combat and disregard for military and civilian casualties. Ultimately, the Germans were forced to surrender, marking the first major defeat for Hitler's forces and a significant turning point in the war. In the Pacific, the Battle of Midway was another crucial turning point. The Japanese aimed to eliminate the United States as a strategic Pacific power, but their plan backfired. In June of 1942, the United States Navy decisively defeated an attacking fleet of the Imperial Japanese Navy near Midway Atoll. This victory significantly weakened Japan's naval strength and shifted the balance of power in the Pacific towards the Allies. Finally, we arrive at the D-Day invasion. On June 6, 1944, Allied forces launched a massive amphibious invasion on the beaches of Normandy, France. It was the largest seaborne invasion in history, involving over 150,000 troops from the United States, Britain, and Canada. The successful invasion marked the beginning of the end for Nazi Germany as it opened a second front in Europe and put the Allies on a direct path to Berlin. These turning points marked the beginning of the end for the Axis powers. They were the moments where the tide of the war shifted, where the seemingly unstoppable Axis forces began to crumble and the path towards Allied victory became clear. As the tide of the war turned, the end became inevitable. The final chapters of World War II were marked by a series of major events that brought this global conflict to a close. Let's start with the fall of Berlin. By the spring of 1945, the Allies were closing in on Germany's capital from both east and west. The city, once the heart of Hitler's Third Reich, was under siege. Despite a desperate and fierce resistance, Berlin finally fell to the Soviet forces on the 2nd of May. The once proud capital of Nazi Germany lay in ruins, its fall signaling the near end of the war in Europe. But even as Berlin crumbled, the man who had led Germany into war was facing his own end. Adolf Hitler, secluded in his bunker, could see the writing on the wall. On the 30th of April, he took his own life, leaving behind a legacy of tyranny and destruction. His suicide marked the fall of Nazi Germany's leadership and left the country in chaos. Yet the war was not over. Halfway around the world in the Pacific, the United States was preparing a final, devastating strike against Japan. The dropping of atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August of 1945 was an event of unprecedented scale and consequence. The sheer power of these weapons brought about Japan's surrender, but at a terrible cost. The bombings resulted in the death and injury of hundreds of thousands of people, and their impact is still felt to this day. The end of the war was not a quiet fade-out, but rather a series of thunderous events that shook the world. It was a period of intense and rapid change, of victories and defeats, of hope and despair. It was, in many ways, a reflection of the war itself. World War II came to a dramatic close, leaving in its wake a world forever changed. The end of the war was not the end of its impact. The closing act of the Second World War set the stage for a new world order. As the dust settled, nations came together to form the United Nations, a body designed to promote international peace and prevent future global conflicts. The UN's inception marked a significant shift in global politics, a beacon of hope in a world ravaged by war. Meanwhile, Germany, the instigator of this deadly conflict, was divided. Its territory was split among the victorious Allies, birthing two distinct nations, the democratic West Germany and the communist East Germany. This division sowed the seeds for a new conflict, the Cold War, an ideological battle between the West and the East that would define the latter half of the 20th century. World War II, the deadliest conflict in human history, shaped the world we live in today. It is a testament to the horrors of war and the human capacity for resilience and change.